I think I'm going to request Meera to go through the introduction because she has done some good research on our panelists and is better equipped for that. So Meera, why don't you take over the introduction of our panelists today?
Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion on only art can heal the world. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce this panel because we have some varied backgrounds and a lot of experience here today. So the panel is going to be moderated by V. Balakrishnan. He is the founder and artistic director of Theatre Nisha, which is a theatre company in Chennai and has been working for the past 22 years. And he's an alumnus of National School of Drama and Sri Ram Center for Performing Arts, New Delhi. And in these, of course, 22 years of his career, he's won several awards, and most recently being the Fulbright Distinguished Award for Teaching. And he's also won the Hindu Playwright Award in 2019 with his play Sorted, which premiered this year in March before COVID at Natrani Amphitheatre, which is run by Mallika Saravaiji. Now to the panel. I'd like to introduce first Dr. Taruna Jamlamadaka. She is currently in UK, so she's joining us from a different time zone. She's a clinical psychologist with the National Health Service, which is NHS in United Kingdom. She completed her doctoral in clinical psychology from University of Bath. She has worked as a theatre worker ever since her graduation days in Chennai with SRS College. And since then, she's performed both nationally and internationally, where she debuted as a solo artist at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 2014 with the play Singareva and The Palace. So she's been associated with theatre and psychology for a very, very long time. So I'm sure Taruna will have a lot to say when it comes to art can heal the world. Next, we have Hemalata Swaminathan, who is a creative art therapist and finished her MSc in organizational psychology. She's done a lot of behavioral training workshops across India and abroad. She was nominated for the ISTD Vivekananda Award for Excellence in Teaching and HRD in 2008. She founded her own organization called Force Within, a space for creative expression, which was started in 2008. So it's been a long journey since then. She's also an award-winning actor, playwright, and a published poet. So a lot up Hema's sleeve as well. Lastly, but not the last at all, we have Uma Satyanarayanan, who's an accomplished Bharatanatyam dancer and a Carnatic singer. She was awarded the Bismillah Khan Yuva Puraskar by the Sangeet Natak Academy, New Delhi. And most recently, this year, just a couple of months back, she was awarded the Kerala Sangeet Natak Academy Award for Bharatanatyam. She is a senior disciple of Padma Shri Chitra Vishweshwaran, and she has performed extensively abroad and in India. She's also been associated with Spick Mackey and recently started exploring acting on stage with Gauri Ramnarayan's When Things Fall Apart and Death of Jayatratha, which is also her debut as a solo artist on stage. So I think we have a great panel here. So over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Meera. And so what I would like to start today's discussion is by actually looking at this word art. What does the word art mean to each one of us individually? Would Taru, would you like to start by possibly talking about what do you believe this word signifies or means, the word art?
Art, okay. Yeah, it certainly brings back my memories of being forced to draw in one particular period during school. But looking back, actually, those were actually, those little moments of where you could take a breath, where you didn't have to be listening constantly to someone telling you what to do or, learning something else. So it was, for me, art, I think, is a pause, is that moment of reflection, is that time where you can take stock. I believe that's what art is for me. It's where everything else can sort of just gently tone its volume down and, you can do something focusedly and mindfully. So for me, it's that moment of pause that moment of, whew, okay, let's collect ourselves.
There's a very poignant word coming out there, mindfully. I think we will go into a little more discussion with that as we proceed on. Hema, could you lead us through your thoughts and ideas and what do you think this word art signifies? What does it mean?
I think it's a very difficult question to answer because lagta hai very simple, like, okay, what's art? But for me, I feel it's life. Like, wherever you see, wherever, there cannot be a place without, we don't see it, we don't listen to it, we don't respond to it, aisa ho sakta hai, but I think it's just life in itself. The very the very process of birth is art. The very fact that we are all breathing is art. So that excites me. It's a very exciting way. It's life in itself.
Thank you, Hema, for those starting comments. Uma, I mean, you are ad nauseum called an artist. So, what does the word art mean to you?
Yeah, as Hema said, it's a very difficult question to answer. But again, going back to what Taru said, also Taruna said that mindfulness, I think that's what resonates with me also, because sometimes in the in the usual the everyday life situations, when you pause and when you are with your art, it could be even making tea, it could even be making a coffee, but the way you make it, how mindfully you make it, how you enjoy it, I think that is art, I would say. So it could even, even when I'm on a conversation which is slightly boring sometimes, but I'm doodling on one side, that itself is art. So I think there's art. It totally depends on us how we look at everything. Art can be in anything. So yeah, mindfulness is something that really resonates with me. Something where you can just be and not bother about what's happening around, but yet let that also reflect into what you're doing. So yeah.
So, we are talking about art being, things we are doing in our everyday life. We are talking about mindfulness. We are talking it about being, aspects of birth and our participation in life per se. But we also realize that at the other end of the spectrum, we are talking about healing. So somewhere we are saying that whatever we are doing or whatever we are thinking, somewhere it has deflected from a particular path. Somewhere there has been maybe some sort of a transgression in our ways of thinking and doing. So the question which raises itself at this point is, can art rewire our routine ways of thinking and doing? So with that question, I will open up this panel discussion. Taru, could we have you taking up this question first?
So the moment, how art then moves into being this vehicle of healing. Yeah, absolutely. So even in my practice, so I'm not an art therapist, I'm not a drama therapist, I'm not a music therapist. But I know that if I'm working with someone, say with severe trauma, for example, and sometimes talking is not enough. Sometimes there are no words. Sometimes there's nothing that can be said. And you're sitting there in silence, etc. And that's powerful, that's validating, yes. But something needs to shift. And then I look at my art therapy colleagues and I'm like, words are not what are required at the moment. There's something more that's needed. And could you, do a piece of work with this person, maybe to start things off? And then there are no words used in those sessions. I'm obviously not privy to the actual content of each of those sessions, obviously for confidentiality reasons. But what then comes out, what then comes from the other side is a patient who's willing to have that conversation with you because they've been able to express what they've been through the medium of art, and where words are not required, where you are, to keep using the word we've been using mindfully, just to express what's going on, the anguish, the angst, etc., in a way where you don't have to feel it or relive it. Because when you talk about something bad that's happened to you, you're reliving it, you're re-experiencing it. And if you're thinking about PTSD, then someone's, having flashbacks or nightmares. And so this is a way of gently, very gently sort of starting that conversation. It's a huge process of healing, but art can be that way of opening up that conversation in a way that's gentle and not overwhelming for a person. So I've seen the power of it in my work. And there's so much that can be said, but I'm sure, when we come around, I'll say some other bits, but I absolutely see the power of it. And there are things that it can do that I can't do just with a talking therapy.
Thank you, Taruna. Hema, I'm going to ask you the same question. Can art rewire routine ways of thinking and doing?
I think what Taruna said is, I'm going to pick up from that and say that when we talk about, how we used to express even as a race, even before language came into place, I think we as a race expressed ourselves through drawings and through all these things that we see on the caves, the way, prehistorically. So art has been a way of expression, like an innate form of expression. And somewhere language is routine. Language brings in a structure, and language says, okay, if you need to express something, use these words. So exactly like where Taruna said, like when we reach a dead end with language, with routine, then what comes out beyond that is what is innate, what is deep within, what is what the person is actually feeling. And I think that way art somehow goes beyond routine thinking, or maybe adds to the routine thinking in a particular in a way that the person can actually bring out what he or she is feeling or thinking.
Thanks, Hema. Uma, the question now travels to you. So, how do you believe that the arts can rewire these routine ways of thinking and doing? Because we are talking about being mindful, we are talking about activities we do, we are talking about our thought processes. And can the arts bring about a rewiring of them, which leads towards, a sort of a self-healing process, maybe some personal experiences out there?
Definitely. I feel that everyday routine is, something, art is part of our lives, right? I mean, at least most of us. How do you define art? Depends on that, of course. And definitely it enables us to relook at our lives, rediscover each moment. And I think art enables us to do that, because we are at every moment we're engaging with emotions, we're engaging with our happenings in life, and we are rediscovering ourselves. So there is a routine, there is a rediscovery of routine. Or as you said, Hema, when you come to a dead end of emotions, of experiences, there will come a point when you will rediscover yourself and then recreate a routine for yourself. So I think it definitely enables us. I mean, I can't think of an example right now to cite which might explain what I'm saying, but I think it definitely enables us to relook and rediscover ourselves at every point of time. Yeah, this is what.
So, when we're talking about the process of art, which goes towards possibly a sort of creating a safe space for healing, in which aspect is it more effective, when it happens on an individual level or when it happens on a group level? When you're talking about healing the world using art, I mean, it sounds so grandiose. In terms of what is the strength of art? Is it when it is kind of on a one-to-one basis, or what we might call as some sort of a group therapy where we are working together? Would its effect be as effective when it is done with a lot of people vis-a-vis just one person? I'll open this question to any one of you who wants to pick it up. Yeah.
I guess, okay, so I think that's really depends on context and what is sort of the goal is. Is it that, I know I'll keep coming back to psychology examples because that's my profession, main profession. So I think it really depends on context. Like I spoke of, if it's someone who has experienced individual sort of trauma and it's their experience, then you do that work separately. To do that in a group would be quite invalidating of that person's experiences. Of course, you might do some preparatory work in a group, which is more general, before doing that work separately. But I think, like I said, it's about the goals of what's happening. Is it about that individual person's journey, or is it something that the collective can sort of give to each other? And then so you choose your mode of using art as a tool to heal, depending on what your end goal is. Is it that you want people to have a shared experience? Is it that you want someone to learn from another person's experience? Is it that you have people who are further along this journey than someone else and they have something to teach this other person in the group? And does it need, a relational aspect? Then you'll have something, a group makes more sense. On the other hand, if something really personal and individual and painful, etc., then you might look at doing that on an individual basis to start with. So I think the answer to that question is, it really, and from me, it depends on what your goal is. And I'd hope that, even in using art as a means to heal, we have some sort of aim. A general aim doesn't have to be like, oh, this will be like this at the end of this, but to work towards some shared goal is what I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Taruna was saying in this, and more than agree, I think what comes up for me is when the goal is most important, the intention. So, what is the purpose of coming together here? And sometimes working together in a group can be healing, because it can, I need not say something, but then just because something happened there, it healed me, right? Having said that, I would also say, if we look back at the way some of our rituals, so rituals also are a way of healing, and some of our rituals are, either in terms of the way people come together to make a piece of art, like simply like Rangoli or something like that. That was a ritual which, was for people to come together and do something, and there was like a kind of thin spread healing that was happening all over. So I think, the goal does play a key role there, and then certain cultures have it in their rituals for groups to come together and do a particular ritual that automatically heals. And somewhere theater is such a ritual also, or Natya is such a ritual also, where the healing is pervading, like it just is there like that. It's not thought about. It's not like, okay, we are going to heal this today, but then the continuous practice of that brings about some kind of healing, overall holistic well-being.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to this. I'd like to just share a few experiences here. I'm a performer, and I've been a solo performer as well as I've performed in groups. So this, I can relate to that healing process very well, because there have been times. I mean, there's been a very, very, very tough situation in my life, and I know for a fact that at that point of time, a group of us dancing together, or even meeting to dance, really helped me a lot, because we'd sometimes we'd share, sometimes we'd not talk, just dance. So the doing of art, the actual engaging in the art, helped me a lot in the healing process. And I remember one instance where, I think it was during the Gujarat earthquake. We had a performance where we tried to, show the earthquake. Actually, whatever happened in Gujarat, we wanted to kind of get that into the performance, and we had a small scene in which we had to enact it. And I remember that all of us broke down. It was like a catharsis. It was as if we were living that situation. So that could have helped many people in many ways. You don't know what triggered it and what healed whom, but then it was a very, these cathartic moments do happen. And I think they help a lot in healing. And I know of students who come up and say, today's class was so nice. I was feeling so low, but today after dancing, I feel so happy. So, you never know that what can trigger that healing process. And it's such a, I mean, it's a healing is a very a relative, it's so relative for each person. So the doing of the engaging in the art, I think definitely helps, and engaging with people, sharing of ideas, sharing of your thoughts and your sorrows, I think definitely helps a lot. Art, yes.
Thank you. I'm going to play the devil's advocate a little bit here. Okay. So when we look at something like La Guernica, painted by Pablo Picasso, which is his response to the Spanish Civil War, or we are looking at a poet like Lorca, who is shot dead by the Fezes. What I'm talking about now here is, yes, even taking from what Umar said, as an artist, when I am performing, as when I'm indulging in art, I undergo a certain sort of healing. But the question out here is now that can this art, which is being engaged with by the artist, also reach out as a healing tool for those who are sitting there as observers, or actually make a difference in the life of the people who are watching such art? So yeah, La Guernica is there. Does it stop war? Does it allow us to, does it allow us to rethink or rephrase or reiterate our own stand, political stand in life? I mean, did Lorca's death in that sense make a difference? So is art for the artist's sake, or can art actually heal the world?
Um, I would like to say here that if it didn't, then it would not. There would not be such an active effort to silence it. So the very fact that there is a constant effort, like if you see even theater people like Safdar Hashmi, his Halla Bol was like one of an effort. There was a huge effort to silence him and his art. Why? If it was not affecting people who are watching it, or if it was not sending a message out that was creating a ripple effect, then the very fact that there is such a staunch need to silence it should say that art is powerful, that it is creating some kind of a shift in perspective. It is creating some kind of message. It is driving a message out. It is a powerful tool.
Absolutely, I agree. And even and we might even think that okay, maybe are some forms more impactful, but then you've got the same thing, even with say a Banksy mural that goes up on the streets of Bristol suddenly overnight to make a point about the government, etc. And then you've got huge efforts by some people to sort of paint over it, etc. And because it starts a conversation, whatever form of it is, even if it's say it's a painting, etc. It starts that conversation. It starts saying, okay, and for example, sort of realize, okay, that's why Picasso painted this. It starts a conversation, and that's powerful. Anything that starts a conversation, I think, can be powerful. And I think the more sort of arts that engage, and this might be a sweeping generalization, but anything which really draws someone in and makes you participate, then has that even greater power. Absolutely. So yeah, no, it's not just for the artist. I think the artists, it made me think of something I'd watched earlier in the week. So they talked about how when you're in that moment of creating art, you're in this concept called flow, where it's just sort of, you're not thinking about the next movement, the next action, etc. It's just flowing. And that's powerful, whether you're putting it on paper or it's a play or it's, a piece of music, it communicates. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. And so coming to the healing part, like Bala said, so something that creates a ripple and starts a conversation, or starts a thought, a process in the viewer's mind, definitely helps in further thinking about the whatever has been seen or whatever has been heard. And I would say, from a dancer or a musician's point of view, definitely art heals, because there are moments when the audience comes up to you, and not because you Pramadama irundhathu, Kambodi, not that, but music, for example, definitely has uh, a, a quality in being able to heal you and being able to bring those heightened energies down. I mean, this is just where one example where music is concerned, and healing can happen in so many ways. So, from that perspective, I would say yes, definitely, it is the onlooker, the listener, definitely can heal a lot through art. That's from this perspective.
So this discussion we just now had leads me to a question, and my question is about art for social justice. When we are talking about art for social justice, I think here the kind of art we are talking about, it cannot just be about how the light plays, in a certain painting, or how the color scheme is about there. There now needs to be a very specific structure, which possibly, which kind of opposes the injustice that one is talking about. And we have examples through history of how art has, stood up against social injustice, and it has proved to be a very strong voice of the people. It has proved to be a weapon in a certain sense. So, could we have your thoughts on that in terms of art for fighting against social injustice? Maybe some examples, some stories.
Yeah, so I'd like to say something here. I'm just sharing something which I saw recently. I mean, a young artist, a young poet. I mean, he's also a singer. I mean, I definitely cite examples from my area of working. So this singer from Bangalore and a poet, he wrote a very beautiful poem. He calls it Kali Lali, which is a lullaby putting Kali to sleep. But what he talks about is not just a lullaby where he says, baby sleep, but he talks about the Kali, who is the powerful woman of today. So it talks about uh, sleep so that your arms, which are so strong and have to fight so many injustice, so much injustice happening around, sleep. Let those hands rest. So I mean, what I mean to say is here, a lot of um, a lot of content is being today, looked at to to kind of fight these social injustice. Or like here, I think his point of view was patriarchy that he was dealing with. So a lot of things are being written and already have been written. I think it's upon us how deep we go into these literature or whatever the stories that have been written. So definitely social injustice which is happening, I think, which has to be spoken about, and it has to be I mean, dance for me, dance or theater cannot all be about glamour, as we all know. So definitely there is a lot that can be said, that needs to be said. But yeah, as we say, movies are really they say a huge, impactful medium. So if I mean, we are just comparing, but as artists, as theater artists, or as dancers, as musicians, I think it is very important to look beyond ourselves, and there is a lot of work happening. I mean, so I was quite impressed with what he had written about, even another story about another piece about Shurpanaka, looking at why did that man did this to do this to me, so there are so many little problems that are huge problems that are existing, but in little ways definitely these can be dealt with through art, you know, in small ways. I think we should engage. We must, and I think artists are today engaging in that. Yeah. So that's my.
And there's something there, isn't it, about using Kali and about using Shurpanaka. They are things we know since from the time we've been growing up. And so then the connection becomes easier. Even if someone's never thought of patriarchy, has never thought of themselves as a feminist, but if they can connect with those ideas, okay, Kali, you need your rest because tomorrow you have to wake up and fight again. Or Shurpanaka, you've been completely, this is horrible what's happened to you. It's wrong that somebody thinks they can do this to you, then they can get the concept from a story that they've known all their lives. So there's so much power in those two
Definitely.
examples you gave. Yeah, absolutely. And I was left thinking about, obviously, with all the various protests happening in across the world, but in India as my homeland, so it affects me a lot. And a lot of art has come from, even from, I forget where it happened, but I can see it so clearly. This. An artist's sort of rendition of this woman protecting her male companion from someone who's trying to hit him because, if you hit a woman, we might get in trouble. Let's hit the man who's protesting. And she's standing there. She's wearing she's got a thing around her face. And so that picture is so vivid in my mind, even though and it was around the NRCCA protests. And similarly, just from yesterday, from the Farmers' March, there's this picture of, again, someone with all of his gear trying to hit this turbaned farmer. And again, that was translated into a beautiful piece of art by someone. I think there was an Instagram handle called Turbine Art Bag or something like that. But they are just so powerful. And now that image will last, even though this man has probably moved away from that protest. He's gone on, he's fighting his cause because his life depends on it. This piece of art is now there forever for us to look at, to see. And it's such a vehicle and it's just the power that, the fact this man is like, I'm old, yes, but I'll stand up to you because I've got something to fight for. That is, and that making that into art is now giving us the gift of this lasting for a lot longer than just that image. And absolutely, it's a vehicle to communicate about the plight of the farmers, or sort of the fact that students and young people who are just exercising their democratic sort of right to protest are being subdued is, and those messages will come through to people. I hope those who are a bit more receptive. There are people who will not still receive that message, but the hope is that some people will, through art.
I think when you say this, Taruna, that I hope people will get the message, and I think that's the reason why it has to be repeated. So we feel that why there have been so many for ages now, right from Bardiyar, who's been, and even before that, we've been have written poems on patriarchy, or his works have been in all natures of social injustice he's brought about. So why do we need to continue doing that? Is just because what Taruna said, that it catches the eye of few people at some time, but it needs to catch everybody's attention. So we need to keep doing that. And then I think art can be meaningful only when it addresses conflict, because unless a conflict is addressed, healing cannot happen. So whether it's individual healing or group healing or healing the world, unless we address the conflicts that are existing in that particular era, we cannot heal. And so art cannot claim to heal unless it talks about the conflicts or it addresses the conflicts that are happening around. So I feel that to make it meaningful, whether as an artist or as an art therapist or whatever, just as a human being engaging in art, if we need to make it meaningful, we'll have to look around and see what is the conflict that I'm healing and address it.
What about art that can go towards fracturing society? I mean, like, we know about the recent protests, maybe around 2-3 years ago, which happened in the United States, where people were talking about bringing down particular statues, bringing down particular paintings. Now, these are paintings, these are statues, these are representation of an artist. They do fit into the accepted definition of what art contains. But then these are those examples of art which are also going towards creating a fracture. So here, what is the dichotomy that we are engaging in when we are talking about art healing the world and art which can fracture the world?
Quite a question.
No, I think that's why it's so powerful, right? Because it has the capacity to heal, or what you say as fracture. But I would still wait to try and understand if that is a fracture, or is it how it is looked upon. Like, even when you were phrasing it, you said it is within the acceptable. So, what is acceptable to a section, when it is not acceptable to another section, then it is looked upon um, as a break, or a rupture, right? But maybe it is not. Maybe it is what I think we need to take a pause, like Taruna said right in the beginning of the whole thing, that maybe it is about taking a pause and looking at what is it conveying, and then maybe it doesn't look like a rupture. Maybe it is something that is looking for healing, is looking for address, like to be addressed.
And maybe that rupturing is needed to restructure the society again, probably to relook at things again. So, I mean, that's just what I would like to add, because as Hema says, yes, it's very powerful. So if it has created an opportunity for people to, think and go against what okay, I'm losing the thought thing. But if people are really, it has moved, it has stirred somebody, that means there is a need to restructure whatever is existing in the society. I think that is where art helps. It kind of rekindles the structures, and they are recreated again and again and again. It's like a cyclical thing, I think. I mean, I feel that makes sense.
And somewhere I think, isn't it important to rupture to heal? Like, isn't it
Yeah.
important to have that crack and to heal? Like, otherwise, how does healing happen?
Absolutely. And actually, lots of, just thinking about Bala's when he phrased the question about statues. So I live in Bath, very close to Bristol, and so there's this man called Colston, and there's lots of things in Bristol named after him: Colston Fort, Colston Hall, this, that, the other. And interestingly, the most recent, sort of resurgence of BLM, or Black Lives Matter, was when there were huge protests, quite safely done, given that it was during the pandemic, where they brought down a statue of Colston. And there was I was in great support of it. I said it should have been done long ago. And there were lots of people who said, no, that's heritage, that's history, that's, it's part of our history and, the story of Bristol, and you've just brought it down. And so, but I guess you have to think about its relevance now, don't you? Like, if that man was, a slave trader, for example, to have that here in 2020 in my face every day, this person, black person, has to walk past it. I mean, come on, of course they're going to bring it down. And with this particular example, they'd asked for over and over for it to be taken down through the right ways. But then nobody was listening, and then there was this huge movement, and they brought it down. And now the plan is to put it in a museum of that period for that. Yeah, and that's fine, because you can at least put it in context, can't you? Mm-hmm. This man was a slave trader. At one point, he was very well revered in Bristol, but it was taken down in 2020 because of this reason. So I guess my point I'm trying to make is that something that is, feels relevant at one point, we need to keep checking, rechecking its relevance as we go along, and the impact it has upon the people in sort of the contemporary situation. So I might have gone off track here, but I guess point is that I think, even bringing down this piece of art is the communication, isn't it? Yeah. This fracturing piece of art, bringing it down was symbolic, was important.
I would like to share something here. In Japanese art, I've read if a bowl breaks, they join it together, they get it together, and the cracks are filled with the golden, something, a gold, I think golden particles or whatever, to show that there has been a rupture. But then there is a change in the structure of it. So I think that kind of applies here also. Just wanted to share that. So
So I'm going to lead from the talk that we've just now been having and ask a question, which is, can learning through the art increase tolerance, increase our abilities to resolve conflict?
I'd say yes. I think art has this way of putting something across in a way, to want of a better word, that's more palatable. Like if you tell us that story via the story of Kali or the story of Shurpanaka, it's much more like you can receive it because you're getting it through this vehicle of a story, and I think we've had discussion. I think Bala, Meera, and we've talked about this before, where you're not just because there's been this horrible case of something that has happened in the world. You don't have to portray that itself on stage for the impact. You can use themes, you can use similar stories, you can use mythology to convey that same story about a woman being battered, hurt, abused, etc. So I feel like I've lost the question. I want the question again, Bala.
You were quite there with the answer, actually.
Yeah. I
The
just
question
needed
was,
to finish my.
Yeah. Can learning through the arts, can it increase our tolerance, increase our ability to resolve conflict?
Yeah, because I think, so I was on the right track, thank God. It gives you a platform to convey a message in a way that, without being like, like shoving a message in your face. It's presented to you you can have really strong, hard-hitting pieces as well, but then you have to know your audience as well, don't you, when you're using that. And then if you do it more subtly, you're probably going to reach people you wouldn't normally reach. The people who wouldn't come and just watch it because it's a street play about abuse against women, but someone might come and see something about, I keep using the Kali and Shurpanaka ones because I like them so much, but they'll come and watch that, and then they'll get another message. They'll get the other message you want them to get without it being directly shoved in their faces or presented to them, which can happen. Sorry, I hope I've made sense.
Absolutely. Eva, would you like to take up this question?
Yeah, I think what I understood when Karuna was saying is it somehow opens up, to listening or to seeing another perspective. And I think one example I would like to share here is when we work with children, and when you're talking about building resilience or building an empathy for the other person, and when we use theater to do that, or when we use movement to do that, just because they are engaging in something like a trust building exercise or something like that, they are able to see, okay, what let's say we call it role playing a situation, and being able to see a particular situation from another person's being in someone else's shoes just builds that empathy, to be able to, how much ever I tell the child, be empathetic or be tolerant or whatever, it somehow doesn't sink in. But when they do it, when they role play it, they automatically come back and they say, oh, I didn't know it feels this way, or I didn't know. So I think, again, it is, art does have a way of opening up the person, seeing someone else's perspective. And that, I think, brings in certain qualities of empathy or tolerance, which are very important skills.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uma, over to you.
I'd like to take up the word resilience. I think, coming from my background, I've seen children, like Hema said, opening up. And there have been so many children, like, for example, when we work, say, towards a performance or an arangetram, as you would call it, I mean, it's like a full 1.5 hour, 2 hour performance, the training in, I mean, the way you kind of make them open up, emotions that they have never probably expressed or experienced in life, they actually start thinking about those situations, through the narrative that they are showing. So they get an opportunity to look at something from a different perspective. So that opens up their thinking, ability, and empathizing with somebody who would be in the similar, a similar situation, or even themselves. For example, if there's a narrative where it's about some story where they're not able to relate to it, but you give them an opportunity to think and to be able to empathize with that particular character, and say resilience. That is something I think in dancing, or say any kind of movement, art, uh, that thing of resilience comes very automatically, because you have to keep pushing yourself, and that quality can be, developed, because there's no other go. You are there on stage, and that happens in life as well, right? You fall down, you have no option but to get up and just go ahead. So I think these are life lessons that you learn. And children, I mean, if we give them the right direction, I think they pick it up very soon. Yeah.
Where I think all of us are absolutely standing on one singular platform, that we agree that arts have the power embedded in them to create a change, not only in the person practicing them, but also in the lives of the people who are participating in that communion, either as actors or spectators. I mean, even with fine art. But what we also see is that there is a major snob appeal which has built up around the art. People liking to go around saying we are artists. I'm a theater actor. I'm a dancer. So it makes the rest of us at times feel that okay, that's some sort of an elevated profession, or that's some sort of a talent which you must be born with, and that's not for me. So a huge percentage of our population also stays deprived from the arts, and practice of art is not very affordable for everyone, especially in the context of a country like India. So what can artists, art practitioners, art therapists do in order to make sure that each and every one of us is able to indulge in this craft of mindfulness to bring about a better society and a change in our lives?
I think I'll go first, because I have had this conflict all the time. I mean, and recently, I think I'm having a lot of conflict about this, because I am a performer, as you may call it, and there is a huge amount of glamour and all that, associated with being a Bharatanatyam dancer and blah blah blah, whatever. But the conflict that I always have is, why is it so product or objectified? I mean, I have a problem with that, because as a dancer and in our field, we have this thing of, the dancer is it's really objectified. She's looked at as something which is a perfect, but then my question is, when art can actually heal, where does all this come in the picture? I have had students, whom I have trained, or trained, I mean, I don't want to say the use the word trained, or engaged with, who necessarily don't want to make it as a performer, but the process that they go through in that engagement into the art. I think that is what is important today. That engagement, to make them feel that no, this is also something you can try. And that's why I think when I go to these Spikmeke lecture demonstrations, when I see those children, there are many schools. We go to into interiors of many little villages and all that, and the children, you have to make them understand. You have to make them feel that this is not something which is kind of mystical or something. I think we need to come down. We need to come down. I mean, especially I think dancers. I'm being a dancer. I'm saying that, but we have all to come down and make everyone believe that this is just a way of expression. That's all about. It's about it. And I think that's where I am trying from my side, that to make people believe that, boss, it's okay. You're not, just because you're a dancer doesn't mean that, and it is not accessible. It is very much accessible. What did we do, and what the human race do before language was born? We were actually gesticulating. We were actually talking through mudras, whatever you may call them. So it's not a big deal. So we have to bring that awareness in people, that it's okay. It's just a way of expression. That's all. So I think that's what I have come to after these many years of being in that circuit and being in that thing of going through the glamorous part of it and all that, but coming down today, this is where I stand. So
Thanks for that, Uma. Would Hema or Taru like to go on?
Yeah, I would like to say, first of all, begin with thanking Uma for taking that stance, of saying that she's trying to make it as accessible as possible to as many people. And I think that's very important. And then, very honestly, she said that we need to step down a bit and create that balance. And I think when you put this question forward, Bala, I think inclusive is the word that comes to me. Many a times when I begin, when someone approaches me for a session, they say, "Oh, I'm not an artist. Is that okay?" So that itself tells me that this is a kind of a fear or something, a kind of a barrier which everybody carries. And I think somewhere it begins very early, either in school, or I don't know, with some kind of an environment which says only if you do something like this you're an artist, or only if you look this way you're an artist. So a lot of pretension that comes in either in terms of look or creation. And I think again, I'll go back to what Oma said, that okay, there is performatory art and we need to be a certain way or whatever for that purpose. I'm not getting in there, but otherwise art is inclusive. Like everybody can take any color, any crayon, any instrument and play something on it. And I think that needs to be driven across to children and of course anyone who wants to approach art.
Actually, I really want to take that idea of non-performative art as well, because to then say, oh, I'm an artist, or I'm a dancer, or I'm a musician, and now this is all mine, is to take away the healing power of art. And isn't it? So, and art for healing means you want everyone to have access to it. You want, like, if I'm thinking about art therapy, I want whoever needs it to have access to it. And it shouldn't be that, okay, this is some kind of ideal or some kind of goal which I can never ever endeavor to, because I don't practice the way they do. I don't engage in it the way they do. I don't get paid for it, for the little drawing I draw, etc. That is what I think. Like, I remember when in Chennai, when I used to be in plays, and lots of my class, schoolmates were very close to, etc. They wouldn't come because theater felt like this concept. Or I'll go for a movie, but I'm not going to come and watch a play. And even if they'd come, they would have seen it was as entertaining, as poignant, etc. But I think it's perception, isn't it? Perception can drive such a big gap between the artist and the audience, or even other potential artists. It can keep you away from it because of all these perceptions. But yeah, especially since we're having a conversation about art for healing, we want everyone to be able to pick up, make a noise with their voices or with something that they've got at home, or draw or doodle, or make a little pot for their plants. I'm looking at a pot for a plant. That's why I said that. And you should be able to, and everyone should feel okay to do that. And I think even with the idea of, just thinking about corporate workshops, there's a reason now there's so much theater movement that's involved in all of that, because it's everyone's noticing that it has this power to engage, to connect, to teach, to pass on messages in a gentle way without saying both of y'all are not getting along together, y'all need to get along. So you might do that through a trust building exercise. It's going to be so much more powerful. So I hope the move is to make it more for everyone. But yeah, and thanks, Uma, what you just said about, that your constant endeavor is to say, no, this is for everyone. This is something everyone can do if they, want to do, or they don't have to do it for a profession. They can do it for healing, for enjoyment, for joy.
Thanks, Taruna. We're looking at art as not merely being performance, but art as engagement. So, if we are looking at the fact that art has this power to heal, what can be the conscious efforts on the part of artists and art educators to kind of, on a global level, bring people together to actually embark on a voyage wherein this sort of a healing takes place? What can be the initiative which can lead to certain meaningful exercises and endeavors on part of people all over the world?
Well, I think more collaborations, in the sense I'm not talking only from the performative aspect, but more collaborations, more discussions, all from artists all over the world. And in today's times, I think it's much more easier because we have this box in front of us and we are able to connect with people, artists all around. So I think artists who are ready and willing to look at art not at themselves as artists, but art as a medium of healing. I think that needs to be the way forward. Recognize such kind of artists and bring them together on a platform. Have discussions, have collaborations where they work together, where they exchange ideas, and work towards a better purpose or a target. As we say, there are so many issues to be dealt with internationally, nationally. So I think that is very important. Today, I think it's easier also to do that because everything is going digital, and we are all miles away, but we are able to still come back and come together and do something. I think it's important to engage with artists all over the world who are like-minded and who look at art as not just a product, but a process. That's important.
I think I would like to add here something that comes to my mind, and I don't know if it's addressing your question directly, but I feel as children, we all take up art classes, something, and then as we grow up, that's the first thing that's taken away from us when we have to attend the so-called serious exams or the serious business of life. So the impression that someone gets is like, if I need to be serious about life, the child is told, leave art. Right? So I think what we need to do is begin to tell that this is like breathing, like this is like something you don't give up on because you need to do something else. Right? So to make it, to allow each individual to choose something that they can keep doing through their lives, so that they begin to find meaning in it and it becomes like synonymous with life.
Yeah.
And taking that, sorry,
No, please go ahead.
Taking that idea forward that Hema just said about how, the things that you drop when life starts getting serious or stressful, as a child, it's your art class, your music class, you have less PT classes, you have got more science, physics lessons, etc. And actually, just thinking about that in the context of mental health and therapy, we always say, when things get stressful, what you stop doing are the things that keep you well. You stop exercising, you stop, making a good meal at home before you eat, you're ordering takeaway, or you stop going to your exercise classes because I've got so much to do and that's all is on my mind. Actually, the most important thing to do then is to hold on to the things that keep you well, especially when things are stressful, but somehow our human mind is, we're very old brains. All our brains are very, very old. Like in terms of evolutionary, we've got reptilian brains that take over a lot in times of stress. So it says, no, I have to make sure I've got all my resources and everything has to be focused on this thing. But the truth is you need self-compassion. You need your calming side, which you get through eating well, exercising, art, all of that calms your system down so that you're better at whatever that's causing you stress. So similarly, it's about, just like what Hema said, that should not be what's dropped. That should be encouraged, especially if someone's taking a board exam. You should be asking that child to take a break and have a music class, take a break and have an art class, take a break and be part of a play. That's what is needed. And sadly, that's what's dropped. And it just makes us, a huge part of this rat race, so to speak, instead of being able to just say, okay, no, this is all part of it. All of this is important, but that doesn't mean the things that keep me well need to be dropped. Absolutely. And then that, I think the point Hema was trying to make was about that has to come from educators, from educational institutions, etc. And actually governments need to be paying more attention to what arts can offer and what artists can offer and the importance of it throughout the lifespan. If you're a really old person at the end of your life, I've seen people with Alzheimer's who would not have talked for years, and then somebody comes and sits and sings a song that they know, they join in. And how powerful is that?
Yeah.
And that happens with children who are otherwise have other sort of difficulties, but they join in because art taps into such an innate part of us that we need to give it more importance, and actually governing bodies need to remember how important it is in keeping people well.
Yeah, I remember there was this video that went viral. If I have time, I may just share something. There was a video that went viral about a ballerina, who was I think 90 plus, yeah. And the moment she listened to the Black Swan and she just started, so it's beautiful. And I remember one of the Spikmeke lecture demonstrations I went to, the same point I made, because one of the children got up and said, "Ma'am, can you give us some advice as to what we should do in 10th standard studies?" I said, first go to your dance class, music class, everything, and then study. Don't stop it. So that's precisely the point Hema was talking about, because I remember during my boards, I went to dance class and my dance teacher said, "Unity, what happened tomorrow? Science exam." And she was like, "Why are you here?" So that's the kind of conditioning we are brought up with. I think we need to change that. Yes, that is a beautiful point. So yeah, that's all I want to share.
Fascinating. So my final question on today's forum is slightly loaded. A tabloid, during the COVID times, there was a tabloid which reported and said that, that during the time of the pandemic, artists are the least required people. I might gently be paraphrasing, but that was the basic idea, that artists are the people who can actually be, done away with in the pandemic time. What are your views on that?
I think we should just take a TRP of all the Netflix and Amazon Prime, and you will know who's been keeping people indoors happy and, at least feeling that, okay, there's some connection to the external world is the artist in all forms.
I think that was a mic drop moment there.
I think we said it all.
Absolutely. No, but it's ridiculous. Like in the UK, and it's all gone now because of how stupid it was. It was this picture of a ballerina, I think, and it says whatever her name, Joanna, the next job is in coding. She just doesn't know it. Meaning to say, oh, if you're not getting paid because you're in the arts, you should be thinking of retraining, and we'll support you in retraining as a coder or whatever. And there was an uproar here, as it rightly should. And there were lots of ads that came up about Dominic Cummings and the Prime Minister saying Boris doesn't know his next job is a plumber, and et cetera, because the ridiculousness of it. You're saying someone has spent years training to do something of value, and you're saying, oh, it's no longer relevant just because there's a pandemic on. No, you should be giving them money to carry on doing what they're doing so that they can continue to add value to society, to life, and to continue sort of, earning their own bread and butter. That's what government should be doing, not saying, oh, retrain as something else that they've never ever done in their lives. It's ridiculous. And absolutely, I mean, yeah, I've got every form of OTT subscription now because of the pandemic. So yeah, absolutely, it's ridiculous to even suggest that. I think that artists are not required.
I think they've kind of said it all. So yeah, kind of feel the same. Yeah.
Thank you. I think with that, we will come to the end of our absolutely fascinating dialogue that we have had today. And I would like to thank our wonderful panelists and Meera for having joined us and engaged in this much needed conversation. I mean, this is a topic which needs to be addressed, which people need to take steps with in terms of understanding that art can heal the world, and each one of us individually needs to become an agent to allow that to happen. This is not about performance. This is about engagement. This is about communion. This is about all of us coming together in order to, not just heal ourselves, but heal everyone around us also by just allowing, this good energy to spread everywhere. So thank you so much, Taruna, Uma, and Hema for having joined us. Thank you, Meera, for having been a part of this panel. And with that, we shall conclude this seminar, this panel discussion. And I do believe that this is a dialogue which has to continue and go on, and that today's forum is just going to be the harbinger of that. And there's going to be a lot more of thoughts, dialectics, and ideas which are going to pour forth from where we have started today. So thank you so much once again. And thank you, Jayarangam, for having organized this fascinating panel. Thank you so much. And with that, we shall conclude.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.